Hello, everyone. Welcome to this webinar on improving candidate experience with Starred and Workable. So we have many happy Workable users in our midst today. So a very welcome to you guys. It's a 30 minutes long webinar, so we'll make sure we'll end just before the top of the hour, so you will be right on time before your next engagement. We are Thomas Robert, who is over there. Just wave to the audience. He will demo shortly the Start solution. And I am Mark Berendsen. I'm co-founder and chief revenue officer of Start. Well, let me quickly introduce Start to you. Start is a made-for recruitment feedback and analytics platform. So what we do, we measure and analyze the perception of your job applicants in your recruitment funnel. So you have your ATS data on one hand, which are sort of hard data, and you combine that ideally with perception data from your candidates. And well, we help many clients. We help corporate clients, for example, Ledbrooks, we have Danone, we have Coca-Cola, but also many tech scale-up companies. You see probably some familiar logos over there, both in Europe and in the US. And actually, the similarity of all of our customers is that they want to be successful in recruitment and they want to improve their candidate experience in a very data-driven fashion. So in reality, your company probably measures their customer satisfaction, right? There wouldn't be a customer support department where the customer support happiness or the net promoter score is not measured, maybe to the very individual level of an agent. And at the other side, there's of course employee engagement. Your company would measure the engagement of your staff. Well, in recruitment, somehow it's not that common or not that well established yet that you measure your candidate experience. And we are on a mission actually to make that really a standard number that you have to measure, because actually you reject hundreds, if not thousands or tens of thousands of candidates. And to learn from those candidates, they're actually a gold mine to you, but they can also be a little bit of a liability to your employer brand. If they go to review platforms like Glassdoor, they can become a pain. So you need to listen to them. Again, they're a gold mine of information. So how does that actually work? And we've looked at the napkin of Jeff Bezos, the flywheel, and we made that applicable to recruitment. So there's this situation of the war on talent that's very real. And this company that you need to envision has a very bad candidate experience. And as a result, candidates withdraw. Of course they do. And the top talent even more so. So you'll end up hiring low quality hire, all the while your employer brand is declining. And as a result, fewer applicants will go in, especially top talent, and your TA team starts to be overwhelmed. And as a result, the candidate experience worsens. So you're in this vicious circle that you need to turn around. So you need to improve your candidate experience in a situation like that. So, and that's where we come in, and we want to do that integrated, of course, with the ATS, with Workable. So on the next slide, you'll see some of our, let's say, advantages. First of all, what you don't measure, you cannot manage. So if you start measuring your candidate experience, you can see the insights and the data upon which you can improve both your processes as well as your people. So you can coach your recruiters, you can coach your hiring managers, and you can coach your interviewers. But you also improve your employer brand. So you protect and improve your employer brand, not just your employer brand, but your brand as a whole. Because in many cases, your candidates are also your clients. And you can imagine if somebody experienced a bad candidate experience, they would want to pass by your store or not buy your product or service again. And that's a very real threads. There are some cases that really point out that in real life, and we'll share that in the chat. And also, by the way, I didn't mention that, but you can, of course, ask any question you want during the webinar by just going to that question section you see on the right-hand side. Well, you want to do this without extra work, of course. So we offer a very easy and flexible integration, which you can use very effectively and efficiently. So it is triggering these things all automatically and gives you the insights without any hassle or heavy lifting. Well, that's something that Thomas is going to demo. A couple of steps. First of all, he will go into, let's say, the view of the respondent. So everything that your candidate will see, and from their point of view, then go into the solution, and in the solution, look at where the surveys are and where your repository of content is, and then go into the workflow building in the integration. So everything can be set very granularly, but automatically. And finally, and of course, most importantly, go into the insights where it's actually where you find where to improve and how to improve. So without further ado, over to Thomas.
Thanks, Mark, for that great introduction. So hopefully you should now see my screen, and Mark will stop me if you don't. But right off the bat, we can see what the respondents would see. So obviously we used a recognizable logo here, but this would still be recognizable to your client since they would have just applied to your company and would recognize the logo there. As well, the picture, this can either be the last person who they spoke to, or even a more senior member of the recruitment team, just with the idea that, hey, we care about your feedback, we take it very seriously, so please do answer this survey. And then we also have some personalization touches here. So we've selected the first name, the role that they applied for, and the office that they applied to, but this is something that you can select just with the goal of making it more personal and increasing the response rate. Then in terms of customization, we also have this intro, outro. This is a standard copy, but you can customize this as much as you want. And before going into the very first question, also known as the Net Promoter Score question, so it reads, how likely is it that you would recommend us? Now, as soon as they click on a question, that'll take them to the full survey. And of course, it's worth mentioning that if they decide not to answer the full survey and close it from here, then we'll still hold that insight. So at least we still have it. And also you'll see we are still fully on brand here. And we've got different language options as well. And as we skip through the questions, we'll notice that there's always quantitatively measured questions because it's really nice to make averages and dashboards out of it. But we also understand that sometimes some more deep insight lies in the qualitative answer. So we always leave room for text boxes as well. And also, as I'm skipping through, you'll see that we're not forcing candidates to answer every question. And this is not only because we want them to get to the submit button and drive up response rates, but it's also because what we want is to get the data from the questions that the candidates care about. And if we're just forcing them to answer every question, there's a chance they put random data, and ultimately that will skew the data negatively. And when they get to the end and they're satisfied with the answers, then they can click Submit Survey. And this will take them to this dynamic thank you page. And it's dynamic because it recognizes the very first score, the Net Promoter Score. And when they're a promoter or scoring 9 or 10, then we can prompt them to write a review, for example, on either Glassdoor or your review website of choice. And obviously, when they are not a promoter and in fact a detractor, then we don't show them that please write a review. And what it will actually do as well is send a sort of firefighter email out to a recruiter saying, hey, Maggie wasn't so happy with her experience. Maybe you want to circle back, make sure she doesn't find her way to Glassdoor, and make sure she feels heard and her feedback is well understood. And in terms of the respondent view, that concludes it. But quickly, I'm just going to show you that we have a very wide library of pre-made surveys, which you can always edit. Ultimately, you are the user and you know what questions you want to ask. But we have pre-made ones, and you can also preview them. So here you see that we understand that a lot of people answer emails on their phone. And the last thing we would want is for them to have to go to the laptop to answer the survey. So we've made it fully mobile compatible. Okay, and now going into the integration, obviously we don't want you to be sending these emails out yourself manually. That would be too much work. So we have a handy connect button where you can connect your ATS. So here we have the Workable. And of course, when it's your first time logging on, you wouldn't have this manage button. It would say connect. And so if I click connect, it would actually take us to a page which looks like this, where you would paste your subdomain, you paste the partner token, and within minutes, within seconds even, you are connected and our systems are speaking to one another. And then we can go into this page, which is where you would actually set up the workflows to automate the invitations. So here we see a list of workflows. And what you'll see when we dig into one is that they're made of very standard business rules with a trigger, a filter, and an action. The trigger obviously coming from your ATS. And we can see that we've got candidate hired or candidate disqualified as a trigger. We also have candidate applied, but this wouldn't be within the scope of our platform. However, because it's a token, we pull it. And what you'll see is that when it's a token on your Workable environment, we can pull it. And of course, within the trigger, we might want to put some preliminary trigger conditions, such as obviously the fact that the candidate is hired. But I'll go into the filter as well, where this is where you can get a bit more creative with how you choose to send the surveys. So for example, if you want to send different surveys to people who apply to different job roles, or perhaps different departments, or even different geographies, well, this would be where you would do that. And what you'll see as I'm scrolling through here should be familiar to you from your Workable environment. And what we see in this case is that when the candidate's name is test, that's the only time it would send a survey. And finally, we've got the action where we can either choose to schedule an invitation or send it immediately. Actually, for rejected candidates or disqualified candidates, we always recommend scheduling it because the last thing we want is for them to receive an email rejection from you, and then right afterwards, a reminder of their rejection asking for feedback. And so letting them cool off a little bit for 2 days, 2-3 days is always advised. And then here you can select the template, either from our pre-made ones or from the one that you create, as well as the email invite template. And where it gets a bit more interesting is in these custom fields, where here you can select, again, tokens from your Workable environment, which you can then use to filter on in the results. So I'm going to show you the results in just a minute, but here is where you set all the filtering options. And the last thing in the action is just the email reminder. Okay, so now I'm going to look at the results because, of course, once we've collected all this data, we've sent all these invitations, now we want to see, okay, what are the insights finally? And what you'll see as it's loading is here I can pick the different survey types that I'm sending. So I'm going to pick rejection after interview to analyze that data. And as it loads, we can already see the main categories, which is response rate, where you see the number of responses and the percentage, response rate. And as we scroll down, we can see information specific to the survey we sent, such as the Net Promoter Score. And of course, there's the raw score itself, but we also see the distribution, so we get better insight into how this ends up being calculated. And by the way, if you have any confusions about how this specific number comes to be, feel free to ask it in the chat, because I think it's sometimes easily overlooked. And of course, we have a timeline. And so this is just generally for the NPS. But now if we want to get more in depth on specific questions asked in the survey, then we can go to this question drill down dashboard. And now if you can say it in one go, that's a bonus, because it's quite a mouthful. But as it's loading, you'll see it right off the bat that there's different blocks, and these blocks represent the different pages that we were skipping through in the survey. And here we can see the averages of the responses. But now let me show you the filtering option that I was talking about earlier. It's right here. So for example, here I see that there's a certain rating in terms of the proficiency of the interviewer or the recruiter. But now if I want to get more specific and I want to look at how a specific department is rating it, so perhaps I want to look at the finance department, I simply do select finance, and what we'll see is, oh, finance isn't rating such a high NPS, and there's different scores here. And when I click on this bar, it'll open a page not so different than what we saw for the NPS earlier, but this is just for the proficiency of interviewer question. And here we're still filtering on finance. Oh, there we go. Very bad qualitative feedback here. So if I want to change this this filter and I just want to exit out to compare it, then I can just X right here, and then we'll see the rest. And we can also see the rest of the qualitative feedback as well. In this case, there is no. Okay, and the last dashboard that I'm going to show you here is our priority matrix. And personally, this is my favorite because I think this is where Starred goes beyond just showing you the raw data of your surveys, and actually takes it a step further and shows you what can your recruitment team do tomorrow to improve the candidate experience. And so we do so by correlating the NPS question to the individual questions asked in the survey. And what we're able to see is, where are you losing the most points on average on your NPS per question? And in this case, what we see is that preparation of interview had the greatest impact in turning people into detractors. Now, on the other hand, what that means is that improving this category will have the greatest impact on turning people into promoters, which is obviously what you want. This is a high correlation question, and therefore, if you improve on it, it's a higher probability that it ticks the needle towards being promoters. Now, in this leverage category, these are things that you know that as a recruiting team, you are doing well and that you can continue working on because these are driving your promoters. And we see this in the priorities list, that preparation of interview is the #1 priority. And that's not to say that this bottom list you simply don't care about, but it's also a good reality check where perhaps you thought that advertisement was of the utmost importance, and so you were sinking a lot of resources into the advertisement. But it turns out putting more resources into making the information for the interview more readily available, in this case, would go a longer way in turning people into promoters. And now, obviously, we can still filter here. So if I want to look at finance because they had not such a great NPS, see if they have a specific priority, then I can just go here. And while it's loading, I will give a little disclaimer that if you don't have 25 responses for a specific filter, then the correlation won't be able to work, and it won't be reliable. So in this case, with the finance, we see that there is nothing in the improved category. And maybe that also means that you're not asking questions that are entirely relevant to the finance department. But here we can exit out. and we can go back to the original priority matrix. And now I'll finish off this presentation by going over the people journey, because this is where you can get a more holistic view of the NPS of candidates per journey type. And what you see here is your NPS per journey type. And in the background, you also see our benchmark data. So you can see where you're underperforming and where you're overperforming. And so this benchmark data is also available in our benchmark report. And I believe that it will be shared in the chat for you to see as well. Oh, it's going back. Yeah, so I will hand the floor over to Mark, who will finish off. Oh, I'm sharing my screen there.
Okay, thank you, Thomas. One question came up. Thomas, maybe can you pull up the invitation again?
Yes.
So the first one, the question is, Fernanda asks, can candidates answer it anonymously if they wish? There are a couple of settings in our survey which you can preset. So you can say, okay, this is fully anonymous, like by default. You can always also make an opt-in for your respondents to see that. And then they can tick a box. No, I don't think they have the choice here. So you are fully in control of it being fully non-anonymous, fully anonymous, or it's an opt-in or an opt-out. So that is the full answer. In this particular example, it was fully non-anonymous. So then you would know everyone who responded, but we have many actual examples of customers wanting this to be opted in by their respondents. So I hope that answers your question. So let me quickly recap it. So we have a couple of steps that we take. First of all, of course, ask for feedback, then measuring it, giving you all the data in various views, especially that last one that really drives action into improving it. And then, the circle is round. You keep on asking. And what our clients see doing as well is that they expand the different journey types that they measure. For example, you start with everyone who has been rejected, because you can learn a lot from the rejected ones, and then start hiring and so on and so forth. So let's get into the steps a little bit more in detail. The ask bit is, of course, the invitation, where that can be really personal and relevant, inserting some fields from your ATS to make it feel personal. The second step, of course, is the data. As you've seen, we can compare it with the benchmark. That's all of our customers' applicants, but we go even steps further and give you also regional and industry benchmarks. We've shared a link in the chat for you to download the latest benchmark reports, but they're also always accurate and up to date in our solution. And the final step, of course, is to action on it. And again, the most powerful view is our priority matrix that points you to the right issues to improve on with the highest likelihood of moving the needle on your Net Promoter Score, your candidate Net Promoter Score. So yeah, that's Starred, and as soon as you go live, that's always like a magic moment. The moment that you go live, you start to send those feedback requests, and within minutes you get your feedback. It's really a miracle, and then you can start reading and actually seeing the numbers, but even more so the text of what people say back to you, and you can celebrate your successes amongst the team. Of course, the negative ones you can learn from, but there are also quite a number of positive reviews, as you can read right here. So that's always a joy. So yeah, that's it from us. We integrate with Workable since like a week ago, so it's a very fresh and new integration that we brought to the marketplace. So we hope it's interesting for you. If so, please reach out to us, and you can also ask for a more in-depth demo with, let's say, more members of your team. There's a link down in the chat to book with Thomas, but you can also visit our website and find it easy to book a demo, or email us on thomas@starred.com. So we're happy to help and to engage with you further. Thanks for your time. As said, you'll be on time for your next meeting. Have a good evening and
happy
all the best.
Thanksgiving.
Thank you.